bunch of misfits I ever said either.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into a special edition Misfit podcast. Off-season block number 2 gets started next Monday, May 26th. So we're going to take a deep dive into what's going to be in that program, what you can expect. We will spend 99% of the time waxing poetically about the Texas Method back squat program. Hunter. We've got some good housekeeping, some good announcements, and then some changes to programming structures and potentially the app we use that, to communicate. So we got all kinds of good stuff going on. So for housekeeping right now, we are in, I would say if Hunter's battle with Amazon is at 10, we're at like a 5 with trying to get our Apple podcasts merged with all the other ones. So if you're listening, the thing that sucks about this, honestly, guys, is I am telling people on the podcast that have already figured this out. The people who haven't figured it out will not fucking hear me. But there is a new Apple Podcasts, Misfit podcast. You'll recognize, if you search for it, you'll recognize the logo and all that stuff, and all of the episodes are in there. So that still exists. Everything's good to go with YouTube and Spotify, and we're working to get those merged back together. But if anybody complains to you like they've complained to me, you can let them know that they can research and resubscribe. But obviously losing all of our subscribers and all of our reviews isn't the greatest thing in the world. The t-shirts and hoodies, long awaited, many questions, people posting these. I'm wearing the tee right now. If you're watching on YouTube, this is our new logo. We have 3 colors. 2 of the colors are pretty low quantities. Made those so that we had kind of a mix for people to compete in. So make sure you go ahead and get those. And then we have the hoodie that everyone's been asking for since Erica posted herself in the hoodie a couple of times. Sharpentheaxeco.com. That stuff is live now. I tried to crack a joke to give the people in Discord a hint yesterday that it was live, and it seemed like maybe half the people got the joke, because a couple people were like, so when can we get these? Just go to the website, guys. You'll find them for sure. And then before we jump into this, could actually be a good selling point for a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about. Year number 3 in a row that an athlete following the Hatchet program has qualified for semifinals. That's an important topic if you're new to the podcast, new to the program, because we offer a program called MFT that is going to be called Pro moving forward. That is very much for people that don't have jobs for the most part, or coach a couple hours of class, that sort of thing, side gigs. They do 2 sessions a day, and they are competing at the semifinals and CrossFit Games level.
They are, dare I say, pros.
Yeah. Hit the nail on the head. We're being very straightforward with the naming of that in the descriptions and the storefronts that you'll see. So I skipped over it. Lindsey Hoffman, congratulations, going to Syndicate Crown. Quite an accomplishment. We talk all the time about the progression of the sport and how fit people are getting. So for her to be working her job and following Hatchet, and she jumped onto some of the semifinals prep. Yeah. Yep. Been with Misfit for a long time. Just really fucking cool to see. So congratulations to her, and just a shout out to this idea that you get out of the programming what you put into it. So if it's not appropriate for you, or not appropriate for what you've got going on in your life or where you're at in your journey, Hatchet has gotten someone to semifinals 3 years in a row. So it is entirely possible for it that the onus to be put on you. Hatchet's a fantastic program. We put a lot of eggs into that basket in terms of, how much time and effort we put into programming it. So follow Hatchet, unless, it should be very obvious which program that you should follow. Next announcement is we're not moving, we are adding another programming partner. So you will be able to, in the future, sign up for Misfit Athletics programming or competitive programming on either Fitter or Strivey. We had some athletes come on board that have used Strivey in the past and really liked it and connected us with them. We've been working with them recently. So you guys keep an eye on social media. You'll be able to check that out. But basically another programming platform. And that'll kind of lead me now into some of the stuff with how the subscriptions are going to change. And I'll do these first two parts sort of as housekeeping, and then we'll hit you guys a little entertainment before we talk about off season 2. So when you go, let's say that you want to switch to Strivey, or you're checking out our program for the first time, you're going to see 3 subscription options. Number 1 is going to be Pro. That's going to be $69 a month, and you are going to have 2 sessions a day, and they're going to be marked out as 2 sessions a day. And you're going to be added to a private Telegram group with myself, with the other pros, with some of our other coaches, and things like video review, things like changing certain things around about your program or adding in a weakness template. You're going to have direct access to me within that group. And this is born out of sort of hinted at, a decent amount of people follow the program that probably don't need to, aren't quite at that point. And I also just, with the changes in the season, with when you're going to do a competition peaking phase and deload and do all these different things, if you're a professional, you need access to a coach. And I know that remote coaching is not financially feasible for a lot of people. So that's where this comes in. And I'm excited for the group. I'm excited to help people with video review. And I will say now at the beginning of this that the price of it will move around as supply and demand requires. We're not going to want 100, 200 athletes in there. I don't think the experience will be fantastic. Things like Hatchet Pro, Masters Pro could be possible down the road for people that are looking for that in between, but we're going to pilot this idea within just the professional athlete, because I really just don't think that going it alone with that level of aspiration is the right thing. So remote coaching or pro. Your second option is going to be comp. Comp is a request from, I don't know, half of you guys over the last few years based on what we used to do. And comp is going to have Hatchet, Masters, and GPP in it, all bundled together. So when you sign up for comp, you're going to be able to get all 3 programs. That will be available again in both Fitter and Strivey, and that will be $49. And last but definitely not least, you can sign up for GPP as a standalone program for $29. So those are your 3 options there. GPP, very much like busy professional parents, like I want to be, healthy, strong, fit, 60 to 90 minutes a day, that kind of thing. That program's for you. And then the cool thing about signing up for comp is like, you think about sometimes maybe the like 35 to 39 masters or some of the monsters in the 40 to 44 division. Do I want to be following Hatchet? Do I want to be following Masters? I'm going on vacation. I want access to GPP. I'd like to take a month off of competing and follow GPP to try and get healthy, whatever it is. Like, that's what's really cool about that program. And I think people have been asking for that for a while. So those are the 3 offerings that you're going to see. We're going to do a little bit more of like a slow, soft rollout with this. So there will be a point where if you stay subscribed to Hatchet or Masters or MFT, that your programming will say, hey, you're on the wrong program. You need to go sign up for the right program. But we're not going to like rug pull everybody and make them figure out how to do that immediately. So, keep your eyes out for that. We'll have messages in Discord. We'll send emails to make sure that you guys know what's going on there. I don't know if you have any thoughts or comments on that, Hunter. I was going to jump into the Telegram thing next.
No, I mean, I think that like this is kind of like probably a long time coming based on the number of times that we sit on the podcast telling athletes what program they should be following. There is a 3 to 5 year period in which the line between someone who is like your somewhat everyday gym goer, does open gym, does a competitor program, might have a chance to qualify for the next level. And like might not, they still might be better off following Hatchet or a really good affiliate program with a really good affiliate and coaches. I would say we are like, I don't know. It could go in the other direction depending on where the sport itself goes. But we have trended, I think, past the point in the sport in which you can be like a weekend warrior and qualify for a high level of competition. And there's just too many. And when I say high level, I mean like semi-finalist knocking on the CrossFit Games door, which is who the MFT program is for. And we're simply just, the sport has done what any and all professional sports do, is go from a place where lots of people can participate to, well, only the fittest and most elite athletes can do so. And unfortunately for a lot of people, that means like you either need to make a serious life change that involves spending a lot more time in the gym than you are right now, or what's more realistic is like get on a program that you are able to execute really, really well. And who the fuck knows, we started this whole conversation off with, look, another year where a Hatchet athlete qualifies for semifinals, because again,
Good timing. Thanks, Lindsay.
yeah, fantastic. Like, you know, if semifinals is a reasonable goal for you, like I can't think of a better program than the Hatchet program. I think MFT is going to ask too much of you as far as a time commitment, intensity level, and quite honestly, a fitness level that if you're not at the semifinals level, you by definition just don't have yet. So follow Hatchet.
Please. All right. So we have had quite a few administrative struggles with Discord. I don't think Discord is built for exactly what we're trying to do. I happen to be taking an online course that uses Telegram, and I think it's probably a better solution. One of the big things that is helpful on Telegram is you can send full-length videos. So that's why I mentioned that the pro private group will be on Telegram no matter what. I think we should probably move all of the groups over. And the way that I want to do it is to test it out by sending the invite link. Once I figure out how to use it, sending the invite link to the like Discord VIPs, the people that post on a very regular basis, to all the different channels, and just see what your opinion is. I personally think it's easier to use. It's very much set up like a WhatsApp, like an iMessage, like that kind of thing. And I really just think it's going to be a better solution for us. But I want to, people struggle with change. And also we cook up ideas, on the business side sometimes that don't play the way that we think that they might in reality. So we're going to do a little soft launch of Telegram, get some feedback on that, and then get those links out to everybody moving forward. Holy smokes, that's a lot of housekeeping. Boys, life chat, what's good? What's going on?
Fuck Amazon, god damn it. So I like to say that I'm on my last
That's why
leg.
we can't. That's why we're kicked off Apple Podcasts.
Probably.
They don't dare, or they love it.
I'm wondering if I threaten Amazon via a public podcast, if I'll get any attention, or just get like, I don't know, probably arrested. So
or an envelope with some kind of like Russian gas in it or something.
Yeah. So maybe we'll abstain from that for this week. I'll save that for a future week. But yeah, man, I've gone the route of send out a detailed, like, essentially timeline of what occurred and why you're an idiot. Not you specifically, if you work for Amazon, you specifically. But dude, it's just been such a goat rodeo. I still have 12 PlayStation controllers and a brand new Apple Watch sitting in the original Amazon boxes and packaging in my living room. And I'm like, hey, I want to give you your $2,000 worth of purchases that I didn't make. I legitimately want to, in exchange for me giving you more money. Like I can't even fathom like what individual in this mythical Amazon investigations division reads that email and is like, we'd really like to help, but I think we're going to go with the individuals that hacked your account. I'm sorry. We just really feel like that is a more productive use of our time. I know that you've been a customer that purchases, like, your order history shows shower caps and water filters and some golf gloves and then a couple of tees and stuff like that. And while it is slightly suspicious that you ordered 12 PlayStation 5 controllers and an Apple Watch and then magically your account got shut off, we just can't really piece this together. And therefore, we do not want any more of your business, despite having spent thousands of dollars and having an Amazon credit card in your name. It just doesn't match up for us. So yeah, we're gonna go in another direction here. That is what Amazon is told me in canned responses.
I just looked up does Amazon suck on Google, and it says strong customer service. Amazon is known for its customer-friendly return policies and efficient customer service.
Yeah,
That is a
no,
lie.
it's building the world's most customer-centric company is one of their taglines. It's just until you get past a point of how do
Just
I
admit you
return
love
this
PlayStation
item?
controllers, and this can be over.
Dude, can I buy the Apple Watch off you? I feel like I need one.
Yeah, I'll sell it to you at a discount. Hear that,
Yeah,
Amazon?
dude.
I'm
Yeah.
selling it shit at a discount. I'll return it. Happily return it. Just give me the opportunity to give you more money. That's all I'm asking for. I know that's a lot. That's a big exchange, but no, I'll rest my case there. On a more positive note, I do have a putter in the mail, and I really think it's gonna move for the manufacturer specifically. Yeah,
Got it.
Yeah, I think that's really what's gonna push me over the edge here because I'm
You need one. You need to be one of those dweebs with like the 40-foot tall putter. I need to see you out there with that thing up against your fucking.
I can't honestly. I can't even bring myself to practice with one at golf and ski. Like I just
Yeah.
look at it and I'm like,
Nah.
I don't think I can even pretend to be shopping for this
No.
broomstick.
No,
Yeah,
it's like
well.
it's like to me it would be like warm weather gear for snowboarding. That's just a little too like nah. I'm gonna look like I ski once a year. I can't be doing this.
Yeah.
I can't put this on. I'm sorry. I'd rather be cold.
I had a golf round. It was a tournament, so otherwise I would have not played. But it was the other weekend when it just absolutely dumped on Saturday, and your boy was out there fucking thunderfucking through the puddles on the greens, and there was so much standing water. But I was like, fuck, I'm not like this is raining too hard to wear normal clothes and be like any semblance of dry and not freezing. I had to dump $300 on 2 garments at Dick's Sporting Goods like the morning of, and I'm like, no, like get fucked. The next day, we're back to Dick's Sporting Goods. Be like, yeah, no, just
I don't like it.
Got canceled. I don't like it.
Yeah, not into it. Why is it wet? I was walking around in the rain. Yeah, it's fine.
Fucking rain gear. Any other stupid questions? Here, take this back.
I was actually going to ask the listeners during spring about that kind of clothing because exploring the woods and puddles with my son during end of winter, early spring in regular clothes is not awesome. So I was going to be like, what's the play here? What kind of like pants do you buy? Or do you just buy the like, I should have just bought like knee-high boots. I remember having those as a kid.
I feel like those are the move for sure. Like,
yeah.
What are they called?
But even then,
Fairly
your
common
legs
brand.
get soaked. Like,
how what kind of puddles are you walking through, guy?
well, if it's raining, he doesn't care if it's raining.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any difference to
I feel
him.
like if you
his
got like
his
knee-high
range
boots
suit is
and a
incredible.
long enough
It's like
rain
8 sizes too
jacket.
big, so he looks like the Michelin Man.
Yeah.
Yep. What do we got, Seb?
What are we looking? Malbon? The fuck did you just call me?
That's the hipster golf clothes. Those are super popular right now.
Dude,
No,
that's
Very.
Jason.
Click
That's
golf
Jason
over here.
Day.
Oh yeah, that is Jason Day. That's right.
These are the guys that did the collab with Larry David, and I really wanted to buy some stuff, and then I saw the price, and I was like, yeah, no.
I think they make the coolest clothes, but I mean, I could see Hunter rocking this outfit for $328. It's camo rain
Bro.
jacket.
God,
It's pretty fresh.
I was going to say, that outfit's not
And it's not
$328. That
stolen
jacket
valor
is.
because he clearly served, so you can wear camo. If I
Oh,
wore
that's
this,
true.
I would be a fraud.
My parents are from Northern Maine. I can wear camo.
This is not camo. That looks like a piece of art that some dipshit would sell for like $3.2 million on a.
I'm sure they can probably pull $3.2 million of revenue
What's that
on
one?
that. So
What's that jacket? Why is he wearing?
This I can see you rocking.
yeah, it's
Shell
only
jacket?
$250.
That's not terrible.
How much are the pants?
Terrible. That's terrible. That ain't it. That is not it.
Dude, you
Yeah, but I was
look good,
also
you
like,
play
I finished
good.
that round of golf, and I was like, these garments actually worked super well. It was just super thin, waterproof layers. But I'm like, also, if it's pissing this badly out, am I actually gonna play golf voluntarily?
Right.
If this wasn't an event,
My beef with waterproof stuff is how it traps the heat. It's brutal.
yeah,
It's so bad. Like I've got a waterproof jacket, and I get so fucking hot wearing it. And I know that a lot of them have like the zippers and stuff, but kind of defeats the purpose of being waterproof.
yeah.
So I when like for I would say the first year and a half of Carter's life, I played music for him like all the time. And I made a playlist called Reactions of every song that he liked as like an infant. So anytime I just walk over, hit the plus, add to Reactions playlist. And we have a new one right
Assuming,
now.
like, if he reacted in some
Yeah,
way
if he
to it.
danced, if
Yeah.
he, tried to sing, if he like a lot of times if like someone had a really good voice when he was an infant, he'd be like mesmerized. He would just stop and be like, it's like angels singing to me. Now as a
Tupac.
2-year-old, he screams different song at the top of his lungs if you don't play the right music. So there's a new playlist that is much shorter that rotates pretty quickly through his favorites. But I started again just last week playing him random music, and he does say different song a lot. Like he probably said it 100 times this morning. But
He's
I
10 years
was
ahead of his time.
dealing with yeah, for real. I was dealing with one of my dogs, dealing with Hank, and the song changed. And it's you guys may or may not know the name of the song, but I don't know if when do we get copyright? Can we do like the first 5 seconds of a song, Seb?
Yeah, which song?
Pull up Award Tour by A Tribe Called Quest. See if you guys recognize the beat.
Can you hear that?
Nope. I think you have to. Yeah, I think you have to share it, but still nothing.
Nothing?
Nah.
Let me share it real quick.
I don't know if we'll be able to play it. Anyways, Award Tour by Tribe Called Quest comes on. He's in his high chair, and I look over, and if you're watching on YouTube, he's has his head down. He's going like this. Just vibing, just like jamming. And it's like a very classic old school hip hop beat. So like the hipster in me is just like, yeah, my fucking kid gets it. This kid just gets it.
Yeah.
And he does love Can I Kick It by Tribe Called Quest. That's one of his favorite songs. He just yells kick it. Kick it. Kick it. All right, bud. I'll play Kick It. But that song, that was like a proud dad moment. So I'm rebuilding the new playlist. I just have to go through a lot of duds. Like a lot of duds.
Call it Scream. Call the playlist Scream.
Yeah. It's a lot to get through it. But it's fun and it's cool to like he knows the names of all the Beatles. He claims his favorite Beatle is Ringo, no one's favorite Beatle is Ringo, but he likes to say the name Ringo.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be just a rolls right
and
off
then
the tongue.
Yeah, and then he talks about how he plays the drums, so it's like more like he can remember. So, yeah, there are rumors that he didn't play the drums on those songs. By the way, that's like a deep internet conspiracy that like all studio he like fit the bill of like adding another like Beatle, like looks wise, and some dude came out and said that he was the studio drummer on like all of their albums. Not sure if that's true or not. Yeah. Okay, we are 25 minutes into this podcast and should probably talk about off-season block number 2. So if you sign up for Pro, you don't get any damn choices about whether you're following a strength bias program or a conditioning bias program, because you are following a strength and conditioning bias program. Those choices are made for you, volumes higher, some of the skill work is higher, all that good stuff. But the majority of what we're going to talk about in this podcast for Hatchet applies to Pro, very specifically as well. We've talked about this ad nauseum. We end up doing it 2 full times a year, every year. So we won't spend too much time on it, but we do get new subscribers. We do get new listeners. So we're going to talk a little bit about the strength versus conditioning bias. When you go into the program, your instructions for the day are going to say, if you want to follow the strength bias program, do these pieces. If you want to follow the conditioning bias program, do these pieces. The cool thing is 1 strength and 1 conditioning lines up the same every day. So we still get the community aspect. You can still go into, Discord or Telegram, whatever it is, and communicate with your fellow misfits about this lift and this conditioning piece. But then the other lift and other conditioning piece, you sort of split off and do your own thing. And that just harkens back to no one size fits all program is going to work for athletes, and something that we've stood by for a very long time at Misfit Athletics. This time of year, though, you are deciding, you're looking at your open scores, maybe you're even looking at your online semifinal scores and asking yourself, did my engine hold me back or did my strength hold me back? And then one really important thing that both Hunter and Paige brought up the last time that we talked about this that I thought was interesting was like, what's going to, at this point in the year, get you to train hard as well? If you know that you should follow the conditioning bias track, but that you're not going to make it 9 weeks on it right now at this point in the year, you're going to like keep your head down and work on the strength bias track, that could be something that you take into consideration. We are a ways away from, there's like one thing that we're gonna have to figure out in this entire landscape, and we'll let it play out for a year or so, but maybe we are talking about you're getting ready for the next World Fitness Project qualifier, that sort of thing. So that's definitely part of the conversation here. But again, it's straightforward for so many athletes which one needs more work, right? Like,
yeah, I was actually
it's not that complicated.
I think one important point is like, again, you when you hear strength bias or conditioning bias, don't like think of this as you're swinging all the way to one direction or the other. It is just that it's a bias. It means
it's
like
one piece a day is either this or that.
It's 60-40 the bias that you're going to do, right? You're still going to, if you're doing a conditioning bias, you're still going to lift. And if you're doing a strength bias, you're still going to do conditioning. My question for you is, what if I'm not sure, I guess? What if I think to myself, I'm actually reasonably strong. I don't necessarily have a singular hole. Like my strength is reasonably good. My conditioning is reasonably good. I just generally need to get fitter. Or, I just kind of fall somewhere in the middle. What advice would you give to that person?
I have 2 answers. The first answer is conditioning. It's just that if you go watch event 1 of the WFP and do the math on what those run splits were and tell me that doing strict press instead of your zone 2 run or your yeah, exactly. So that's my first answer. My second answer is, and I'm going to put my foot in my mouth, but I do what I
Please
want.
don't say strength bias.
People have messaged me in a one-on-one format and asked me the same question, and I've actually given them a hybrid version where 3 days, like tell me what your best lifts and your worst lifts are. And some of them I gave like, okay, on day 1, day 3, and day 5, you're going to do the strength bias track. And on these other days, you're going to do this conditioning bias track. I don't recommend doing that by yourself. We know what the progressions are over the course of the 9 weeks. We don't show you those things. So feel free to shoot me a message and I can help you with that. But those would be my 2 answers. The conditioning track, just, we'll talk about the strength bias additions, and they are a bit more sports specific this time around than OS1, but they're kind of specific. And conditioning is not. Conditioning is short, medium, long, power output, anaerobic, aerobic, zone 2, like those things are there. So those would be my 2 answers, I think.
Okay. And to your point about, no, you can't see the progressions from week to week. You just don't see that far ahead of time. But in general, like the same lifts occur on the same day and in a very similar structure, right?
Say the off-season blocks squat, are very structured.
It's like you see strict press on Monday, like or on day 1, you're gonna see strict press every day 1 for the 9 weeks. You're gonna see that back squat every day. So you can, to your point, I know you just said you probably don't want to do that by yourself, but let's say you completely ignore everything we say except the one thing we told you not to do. You could realize that the same lifts occur on the same days each week. So it's like, okay, it turns out like the Tuesday and Thursday lifting days are less of a concern for me, so I bias conditioning on certain days and stuff like that. But yeah,
I do recommend. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it's also a good point that you said, like, so there is a way that a coach especially could help you create a hybrid version. What that also tells me is that, like, it's a little bit less important that you do things in the exact order that they are written, maybe even from a day-to-day basis, and that you are collectively getting the appropriate daily volume in. So if you're like I do a lift, conditioning, and skill sort of person, like it's acceptable for you to move things like, okay, well, this day I'm actually going to flip-flop a day or a piece from a previous day and do that here, something like that. Like there's a chance you'll bump into a couple, like a minor, like, movement redundancy of some sort. But the point being is, like, it's very possible to, like, I missed the day 1 Metcon, I'm going to do it on Tuesday. It's not the end of the world. It's more, the program's more about, and any good CrossFit program is about just kind of getting the work in, as long as you're not kind of like doubling down or tripling down on, like, overcorrecting or doing too much work or too little work on a given day.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, my screen disappeared. There we go. We're back. So one thing that you can do to make this program work a lot better for you is to do a little bit of, like, kind of the educational pieces. Say that the best athletes in this sport are students of the game. Go read the Gears Matrix article on misfitathletics.com. And we can post this on social. We can throw it up in Discord. And once you read it, realize that the programming in this phase is entirely different. So the good thing is I get these questions from people, and they're the kind of questions I want people reaching out to me to ask. So they're like, okay, so I read the article, I downloaded the Gears Matrix, and these windows and rest periods are not what's in that spreadsheet. So in the off season, what we do is we take those same workouts and we chop them up into smaller pieces to ensure intensity and to make sure that your body can get used to the level of volume. So an example would be, if you're going to do 4 rounds of 6 minutes with 2 minutes rest, maybe we do 8 rounds of 3 minutes with 1 minute rest. So it's over the entire window, it's the exact same amount of work, it's the exact same amount of rest, but we find, especially with athletes who are either incredibly aerobic, they struggle at the higher gears with maintaining intensity for that kind of 90 seconds on, 4 minutes off, or the athletes that crush that, typically, 2 by 15 minutes, rest 1 minute it's tough. It's different. And it's honestly not always capacity related. It's athlete IQ related. It's like mentally very challenging. And you have to develop, the right tricks mentally. Like I did the 2 by 15 rest 1 minute the other day, and I watched TV during the first 15-minute section and held the exact pace that I was supposed to. And then during that 1 minute rest period, I turned the lights off, I turned the TV off, I put my headphones in, I turned the volume all the way up. And it was like, this 15 minutes is different. Like I'm going to have to and I still had the nice, sort of heart rate spike there, but there's just this insinuation of if you're going to, and the funny thing is there really isn't even a dip during the minute. Cause I'm turning the light off, I'm drinking water, like that sort of thing. It's basically 30 minutes straight, with a little bit of a mental check-in. But when you break those things up, you can start to develop, the mindset that you need. So maybe those are 7.5 minutes broken up and there's 30 seconds rest. So these progressions are continuing from off-season 1 into off-season 2. And there's notes within the program that says, hey, compare this session to the previous session. And we're basically trying to get you ready for phase 1, to be ready to jump in and know exactly what gears you're supposed to use for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. I'll say it again. It's run and bike season. They're just the level of fuck your legs, fuck your quads that exists in the sport of CrossFit, makes the C2 bike a very important tool for competitors who use it properly. And then go listen to the off-season 1 podcast and listen to us talk about running for 20 minutes. We don't need to do that again. But it's just such a fantastic way to express and develop your fitness kind of, on both sides. So we continue that basically. And I have gotten tagged by a few people that have done the 90-minute runs and the 90-minute bike sessions. And that makes me very happy because that's the kind of shit that's going to move the needle.
Nice.
All right. Let's talk about strength work. So these first 4 lifts that we're going to talk about here, that is not correct. Go away. First 4 lifts we're going to talk about here are what everyone is going to do every single week. And the first one is the Texas Method back squat. This is a back squat program. I think of the Sardaukar in Dune, the hired guns, and they have the dude up in the thing going that's me to Mark Ripito, is up there. Which I probably shouldn't say. Yeah, exactly. Which I probably shouldn't say in the CrossFit community, but we can just take his program. Thanks, Mark. All right. So Texas Method back squat is real simple. On Monday, you do a 5-rep max back squat. And on Friday, you do 5 sets of 5 and 90% of the 5-rep max that you got on Monday. Do not attempt to do 5 by 5 at 90% of your 1-rep max. That either is not your 1-rep max or it's going to go very poorly, very, very poorly. So we're doing this for 9 weeks. 9 weeks is a long time to do Texas Method. And what does that mean? That means that you should probably hit what you think is your true 5-rep max somewhere between week 4 and week 6, and then add 5 to 10 pounds to that every single week. That is for an athlete with a bit of mileage. There are athletes who are newer that haven't done this before, that can add 5 pounds a week plus for 9 weeks. When I would do it, I would drop volume outside of it. So that's part of the reason why it worked so well. But I was able to add 10 pounds a week for quite a while. So just keep that in mind. We want your 5-rep max to be 20 to 40 pounds higher by week 9. That is the goal. And people really don't do a good job with giving themselves runway on these sort of things. We'll talk about it related to other parts of the program. This just like we've done, I don't know how many Texas Method podcasts we've done. It just works so fucking well because, you know, like Hunter and I have talked about basically being opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of like 1 rep max strength versus his muscle endurance. And like it's heavy enough and weighted properly enough that his 1 rep max goes up, and it's 25 heavy reps for someone like myself, which makes my muscle endurance go up. And to be able to craft something that brings both of those to the table not only works for 2 different people, it does both things for both people.
Yeah.
If you can have a program that increases your muscle endurance and your 1 rep max strength simultaneously, put it back in the program over and over and over and over.
Yeah, I mean, since that's kind of the goal of CrossFit, it seems to make sense that squat program is in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Warm up properly for your 5 rep max, please. That's a really big one. Make sure that you're taking the time. Do not be afraid of, you know, high rep squats with an empty barbell. Really grease the groove, check in on, okay, this feels a little bit off. I'm going to go open my hips. You know, my ankles are tight today. My low back is weird. Let me get into the glutes. Like, take the time to warm up for this. And then do not carry over your subjective opinion of the squats week to week. Every time, every new session that you have is a new session, and you will be blown away by the fact that one random week the 5x5 is easy, and one week it's impossible, and the weights are heavier in the weeks that it's easy and lighter in the weeks that it's impossible.
Yeah.
Like, that will change. So do your best to not bring that into the conversation mentally every time that you go in. There's a, like, that's part of the reason why it works too, right? Like, the first few times you're doing it, you're like, this, like, a true 5x5 at 90% of 5 rep max is a session. It's a real session. You know, you notice a difference in your HRV. If you don't refuel and you try to go do a conditioning piece, you're going to notice a difference there. So part of what's happening is you're adapting to the stimulus, which is why it could be easier when it's heavier.
Yeah. I think to go back to your first point about just kind of the progression. So you have 9 opportunities for a 5 rep max, right? And if the expectation
Correct.
or the goal is to add 5 pounds per week, like, and let's say you are successful with that, right? That is automatically 45 pounds added to your 5 rep max, which, like, if some of you think about, especially if you've been doing this for a long time, if you think about, like, for me, 40 more pounds on my 5 rep max is like that. Like, I don't know what world I'm living in. That would be a wonderful world. I'd love to live in that world, but it's not this world. That I'm not going to add 45 pounds to my 5 rep max from week 1 to week 5. 20 pounds, that'd be a huge win for me, and I'd be like, yeah, I'd be stoked on that. And so you kind of have to plan. Don't be the person who, you know, I even personally, like, anytime we do this at the affiliate, and we do this once a year for affiliate athletes, it's like, I love for my first few weeks of that, especially if it's going to be a 7-8 week program, first couple weeks, like, make those feel so, like, good and fast, and give yourself that runway, so that, like you said...
Wait, moving well and moving fast will make you stronger at submaximal weights? What the fuck are you talking about? You're making shit up now. Okay. Now I know you're making stuff up.
And like you said, like, hitting your true 5 rep max 3 to 4 weeks into the program, that is kind of the runway that we're talking about. It's like, it builds you up some stamina, builds you up a little bit of endurance. Like, man, that Saturday and Sunday after your first 5x5 on Friday is like, holy fuck. And I got 2 days to turn around and turn that into a new 5 rep max. Like, it's a lot, especially initially. So I really like making that first week, that first 5 rep max, like, this is a technique 5 rep max. Like, it still should be hard. It still should be difficult. You should still, you know, have to belt up, gear yourself up a little bit for it. But if it's like like if I was under that bar for a quarter of a second longer, it would have stapled me to the floor. Then like that might be a
Yeah.
little bit too much, and
Yeah.
and if that happens, like maybe it's 80 or 85% of your 5 rep max that you start with. Again, you just want to give yourself that runway. It's such an effective program if you give yourself that a little bit of that runway. And the other point that you made I really like is like people so often, I would say even more so in the 5x5 days, they're like, this feels like crap. And then it's like your fourth set, you're like, oh man, that felt so good. It's like,
It's like when people say pistols got easier as the workout went on. It's like, yeah, you
it's
did
like,
not warm up.
yeah, you warmed up. Congratulations. You used the first half of the warm up or workout as your warm up. Same thing with the Texas method, the squat. You can't expect every session you go into, like, if you're listening to this, like, when have you ever like started warming up and 100% of your body feels like loose and ready to roll? It's, almost never. Same thing with the squat. Me personally, like, I'll warm up with the empty bar. I'll warm up with, 135, and then maybe it's either 185 or 225. But I have a weight where it's like, if this doesn't feel good, I'm not going to add weight to it. I think people just kind of automatically defer to like, that was a warm-up set, felt kind of shitty, whatever, let me add some weight and it'll feel better. It's like, what in God, like, oh, you mean that 185 felt terrible, so 225 is going to feel better? Like, are you out of your goddamn mind? Like, do a set, hip feels a little junky. Okay, we floss the hip. You do a pigeon pose. You do something to make it move better. Do a set of squats. Nope, still doesn't feel great. Go back, reassess it, unrack the same weight, do a couple squats. Okay, now that feels good. Now I can add weight. I like make sure that your body is firing on all cylinders at that kind of lighter threshold weight. Once you feel good about that, that's when like, okay, now I'll continue building up to, my first 5x5 first set of 5 weight. But don't let the first 2 or 3 warm-up sets be warm-up sets. It's like, this is 5 working sets.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I know this is, in terms of my muscle fiber type, a little bit easier for me, but typically what I do, let's say that my 5x5 is at 315. I do a double at like 320 or 325 before my 5x5, and I try to stand the second one up as fast as I can. Like, I'll do the first one. It's not tempo or anything, but it's very controlled because you can't speed 5x5 at 90. You know what I mean? That's not going to be a thing. So I make sure that it feels good, make sure that the bounce feels okay. And then the second one, I try to lift like it's a 1 rep max. And that tells me a lot about where I'm going to be at that point. But like, it takes a lot to build up to be able to do that double with where I'm at, like that sort of thing. And then I try to be careful with this because I know Hunter and I are both numbers guys, but like, if you draw, 9 boxes and you put your goal weight at the end, you can really figure out where like your current 5 rep max is, like that sort of thing. And I really do typically put mine in the middle. So if I'm doing this for 9 weeks, on week 5, I will have my, like, this is what I think I can currently do, 365 pounds. I will subtract by 5 to the left and I will add 5 to the right. Again, if you're not as experienced, maybe you're adding 10 every once in a while if you feel great, but like, that's how I do that. And I think things are a little bit easier when they're kind of planned out like that. So something to keep in mind, but if this is your first time through, you might have to do a little experimenting. All right. So if you followed off season 1, you did the tempo pull snatch. We are moving on to the tempo pull clean. You are basically taking the barbell from the floor, through the first pull, through, into the second pull, very slow, really taking your time. Like if a coach said stop, you could stop, hold that position, that sort of thing. And then second into third pull, extension into pulling under the barbell, moving your feet, you are being aggressive. And we work through a progression there that's, pretty standard in terms of higher rep, lower weight, and then work our way down to lower rep and higher weight. This is just the kind of thing where you're checking in on your ability to move while doing things like the Texas method back squat, to get yourself stronger. They will come back together if both done properly to get you a much better clean. You can also understand something about the Olympic lifts in that the dynamic start is reserved for a really high skill level or for an athlete that's actually not really that strong, that's relying on like catapulting themselves and hoping they can get to a certain point. There are definitely athletes out there who could 1 rep max more with a tempo pull because they actually end up in a decent position.
Correct positions.
Yeah. Positional snatch, just what it sounds like. We're working through the hang positions on the snatch, very similar to what we did with the clean. Same concept here. We're making sure that the technical aspects are where we need them to be within the Olympic lifts while doing the Texas method back squat. And then last but not least is the heavy bench press. A lot of pressing in the off season, really trying to develop that musculature. We're thinking about planes of pressing, planes of pulling, healthy, strong shoulders, upper back, all of that stuff. So we're just sort of continuing down that road a little bit. Anything to add to any of that stuff, Hunter, before we talk about how we're supplementing the strength bias?
I'll just do one more touch back on the Texas method back squat. This is like, we talked about the program being really good for someone's a little bit more maybe endurance oriented, someone who's a little bit more power oriented. Like, it works really well for everybody. It also works exceptionally well if you're somebody who's trying to or needs to like retool their squat a little bit. And with this time of year being that like just, you're so far away from competition, the intent of the Texas method back squat is to develop like lower body strength in a way that translates to being competitive in the sport of fitness. And in order to be competitive in the sport of fitness, we have a couple of there are movements like the clean, like the snatch, whatever, that we want the squat to translate to. So if your back squat sucks, if your mobility is trash, if you've got a crazy wide stance and it's a low bar back squat type thing, whatever the reason may be that your squat just isn't like outstanding, it is a movement worth making outstanding, and you can like really move the needle with a 5x5 if you say like, I'm going to, establish a 5-rep max with like this new back squat that I'm working on a little bit more, maybe it's more upright. I'm finally going to bring my feet, in a little bit, or I'm going to finally move them out a little bit. I'm going to finally do the thing that I know that I need to do to make this squat a little bit more functional in the context of CrossFit, in the sport of fitness. And it's a really good, this is a really good program for that, where you can actually, but don't be surprised if like by the end of the 9 weeks, your 5-rep max actually surpasses what, you previously squatted with maybe less than optimal form. It's not like you it's not like you reset to ground zero if you try to retool a movement. Like, that's not how it works. So it's also a great time to like, if you are that person who just, is toes the line on depth, if you're always like pitched a little bit forward with your torso, whatever the mechanical deficiency is, like, this is a great time to retool that a little bit. And don't be surprised if your strength actually is still better by the end of the phase, just because of how well it works.
Yeah, one of the things that we'll do I'll do in a training camp or working with an athlete one-on-one is show them a picture of the bottom of their back squat, the bottom of their catch in a clean, and then their setup position at the barbell in a clean and even a snatch. And the skill transfer is like, you can overlay those things and it's like, holy shit, all three of them look the same.
Yeah.
If you're moving really well. So it explains why we would use this tool so frequently that has basically no place in the sport, or pretty close to no place in the sport.
Yeah.
It just makes all of those positions significantly stronger. So the strength bias program this time around, we've got a lot of strength base that happened in OS1 that is happening, that's going into OS2, and you're going to kind of see some of the connections here. So if you followed that program, you probably got a lot of strict pressing in. We've gone over to doing a bit more of the bench press within this phase, but we have heavy strict pressing. So you did volume and speed work. Now we are going into heavy. It's the kind of thing where we need that momentum going into the heavy because it is such an incredibly static movement. It's a kind of movement where like your progression can just get stuck a little bit faster than it would if you were able to recruit more musculature or be more dynamic or, have a hip extension attached to the movement, that sort of thing. We are also doing the bottoms up snatch pull. Something that we've used in the past, something that I use with a lot of athletes to try to get them to figure out how to use their legs in the first and second pull of the snatch, something that doesn't happen as often in the CrossFit space because we do so much power snatch, we do so much bend and snap that people think that the only way for them to move a barbell is via leverage. And the best lifters in the world have leverage and extension. So they get out over the bar, the torso whips up, but then they jump and become vertical, which is, at a heavy weight is an incredibly impressive skill to be able to do. But I find that forcing an athlete to learn how to do that here instead of in the snatch is easier than forcing the bottoms up snatch, if that makes sense. And really quickly, sit down at the bottom of a squat, like as low as you can possibly go, put your hands on the barbell, and then pull up into tension. That is a bottoms up start. Some athletes already do that.
Yeah, I think the other benefit to a bottoms up start, aside from teaching the athlete to use their legs, is it also forces you, or hopefully forces you, and if not, you should focus on it, to put your upper back in a good, like, stable position. So anytime, because the bottoms up snatch is going to allow you to probably at some point snatch pull more than you are physically capable of snatching. Like the rigidity in your torso and the ability to kind of retain extension in your thoracic spine, so that's like the keeping your chest up, shoulders back sort of cue, is super important. We see athletes whose legs and back far outweigh the strength of their shoulders and their torso and their scapulae and their ability to kind of pull and stabilize that chest into a good position. If you start in a position where your shoulders are rolled forward, they're slumped forward, like there's no possible way that you are going to hit that triple extension and then turn over and then magically create this beautiful upright torso position in either the snatch or the clean. So learning how to set your upper back in a good position is another benefit to the bottoms up snatch pull and clean pull once we get there.
We've got bench press speed work. This is going to sound incredibly counterintuitive, but I consider speed work to be the zone 2 of strength work. Now, one of them's really slow and one of them's really fast, so that can make it confusing. But essentially, when we are giving you guys these heaping piles of volume, we have to find ways to insert more volume without trashing your energy stores. Zone 2 does that by basically we're multiplying the amount of time spent at the intensity, and that gives us, the adaptation score, as you will. So crazy high intensity, we can lower the time domain. We get really good adaptation. If we're going to go really slow, we got to go longer. It's like when they say they do studies on the cold tub. You can get in that bad boy at like 55 degrees. You just got to stay in there for like 6 or 7 minutes. It's actually worse, by the way. It sucks. But like things like that. So with the speed work, essentially we can say we're going to do a lot of reps here. With the bench press, the recommendation from, the old school conjugate method, is 8 sets of 3. And essentially what you're doing is you are tricking your body into thinking you're lifting more weight by you bringing the part of the equation, basically the other side of the equation to create power. So if we're looking at, mass times acceleration is our force production, then a lot of times the mass is what's going to really move the needle on the M moves the F. Now we need to bring the A. We have to bring the acceleration here to trick our bodies into thinking that's happening without that loading. And it's not just the central nervous system, it's structurally as well. Like the bench press specifically, I've done a ton of pressing recently, and I press in all different planes and I press in all different grips. So neutral, pronated, all of that stuff. And the thing that is the most challenging on my upper body is the typical bench press. right? Because we're essentially asking to internally rotate a little bit by turning our hands in that direction and laying down on our back. So what that does is if I'm not in a really great position, maybe the shoulder is, sort of pulled out a little bit and we get a little bit of grinding there. So we want to be doing this correctly, of course, but there's a lot of strain when it comes to the bench press. So if I want to bias that, I need to be able to bring in something like this. It's real simple. Lower the bar under control, press it up as fast as possible. If you can, bring the level of focus needed to do 8 sets of 3, the way that I just described, it will move the needle on your pressing. And if not, it'll move the needle probably because it's 24 reps, but not anywhere near as much.
Yeah, intent really, really matters in this session. You could easily just go through the motions and do 8 sets of 3, and it would basically just be a waste of your time, minus like super minor adaptation. Pressing the weight as fast as you can off your chest is the key. It's also not like 3 reps for time, right? It's like lower the bar under control, press the individual.
That is
reps
one
as
thing that
fast
people
as
get
you
wrong
can.
about the speed work.
Yeah, it's just like it's like 3 touch and go as fast as possible. And they're like Westside will do that, but you're not a power lifter. That's a kind of different format, GPP format that they're kind of using. So like if you're finding that it's easy, it's like it's easy in the sense that the M is small, right? The loading isn't maximal, but like you should feel by the end of that, by that 6th, 7th, 8th set, you should feel like a bit of a noticeable decline in your ability to generate force. Like if you're not,
or you have to bring much more effort to match.
Yeah, you got to bring the effort up a little bit. So like really make those last few sets. You're not going to fail a set. It's more about like, holy shit, I can actually feel myself slowing down, and assuming that's a result because you were going really fast early on. That should be what happens in these sessions.
Yeah. And the reason why we give the instruction that we do versus Westside is because a CrossFitter is more likely to have so much acceleration in the wrong direction that it takes too much effort to turn around and go back up. Yeah. Those dudes are so fucking tight that even like getting to the bottom is like a whole thing.
Sure.
So it's easier for them to turn around and go in the other direction. So that's the thing that you should pay attention to in terms of how tempo it is. Like if you really need to go slow to then go up fast, great. If you can bring it down a little bit quicker and not feel like you really are like changing direction and go back up, it can be a little bit faster, but the way down's not really doing a whole lot for you. And I find that CrossFit athletes, just their mobility is just so much different that sometimes that lower position isn't as tight as it is for some of the meatheads that can just, crank the bar up and down.
Yeah.
All right. We have some touch and go power snatch. So if you're paying attention here, we essentially could have really high end strength with the bottoms up snatch pull. We have technique work with the positional snatch. And then we have the sort of muscle endurance, CrossFit-y, overreaching sets of the touch and go power snatch. Combine those with Texas method, and we're getting somewhere in terms of like the strength progressions all coming back together. It's very similar if you did OS1 to the touch and go power clean. So you should have a good idea of what the feel is. Again, stuff like this is challenging because percentages are, we give you a range, but the stuff could fall outside of that range. Like the range is just there to help guide you a little bit. So just keep in mind that this session is very personalized because there's also the skill aspect to it, right? Yeah. Are you bringing the bar back down and slamming it into your hip and then going out around your knee before you power snatch again? That's not the same as someone who's straight down from overhead, skip the hip, knee bends once the barbell passes it, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think people like these too. I think people think they're fun, which is funny because they're definitely harder. But I think people like a little touch and go work.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I've done a couple of these sessions. If I'm either short on time or just it looks fun, and it is like it's a good blend of like strength and conditioning work a little bit. Like 11 and 9 power snatches, like those are CrossFit numbers, right? And then being able to flush a little bit on the rower in between makes, I think it feels like I've accomplished a lot in that session.
Sure.
And for GPP athlete like myself, like that's important, but it,
Yeah.
you know, like knowing what your threshold is for touch and go weights in the power only movements, I think it's a necessary skill for
Yeah.
competing in the sport. So
I think there's an intensity as freedom element there too. You can get really inside your head when you're weightlifting. It's just so much different than CrossFit, and touch and go requires so much focus that you can get into your body and just kind of do the work.
Yeah.
And I think that is a welcome difference from having to lock in on individual reps all the time of like a highly technical movement.
For sure.
Last but not least, you will Texas method back squat, tempo pull clean. And then if you're on the strength bias, you will do heavy power cleans. So we're bringing it all together. I almost always have a heavy power clean in a program where we only do deadlifting and workout. I want to make sure that I am, once again, the power clean brings acceleration to the pulling, which makes us stronger. The deadlift typically adds a little bit more mass, makes us stronger. So we're making sure we're pulling heavy off of the floor, and the weight will be lower than a deadlift, but there will be some speed attached to it. And that sort of rounds out the entire ecosystem here of getting people stronger. I wonder if, because we spend so much time selling the strength bias program on this podcast, we get like way more people doing that program.
It's just hard.
It's just
it's like
fun
there's
to
so
talk
many
about.
technical elements to talk about to make sure people are getting the most out of it, and the conditioning is very much like
Pace it properly.
hey, do the conditioning. This is what the sport is about. It's a lot harder to talk about that than Texas method, but
all right, we're going to be quick on the accessory work. The difference between the way this is done in the off season versus like a phase one is that the accessory is the same every single week. We want people to be able to progress in accessory work, honestly, very similarly to the Texas method. Like week one should be a fucking joke. The weight that you choose, the rep scheme that you choose, the band that you choose, the footing that you choose on a ring row, that sort of thing. All of that stuff should be very smooth, and we're adding 2.5 pounds, 5 pounds, 1 rep, a lighter band, that sort of thing. It is made, the program is made for you to follow the accessories, but we never follow the accessories in order to skip a conditioning piece, to skip a skill that we want to work on. It's important, but if you don't have the time to do it, you have to understand the hierarchy. This is not a weightlifting program. The GPP element has to be brought into this from the conditioning side. So you can think about it sort of like the skill. Like make sure that the accessory is attached to the lift as kind of the 1A and 1B to tell you, hey, I'm not great at this lift. I should probably do this accessory. Or you look at the accessory and you're like, that's the kind of thing that's probably good injury prevention for me. Like that's what we're looking for. And we want you to be able to follow it on a consistent basis. Throwing in a random accessory here and there doesn't do a whole lot. And I'd rather someone just like take more time to warm up, cool down, and do their mobility than to like choose 7 accessories over the course of 9 weeks that correlate to nothing.
Yeah.
So sort of like that. And there are people who have the time to do it, and fantastic. It's really good. And my athletes that like really, really make these huge progressions over the course of a season, almost all of them are in on the accessory work, right? Like you think the athletes at the semifinals level that held kettlebells over their head for literally hours over the course of the year are feeling a little bit better about that now? Yes, they are. They told me how boring it was. They even sent me videos to bore the shit out of me of them just standing there with kettlebells. But like, it worked, and we'll take it. So something to keep in mind.
Look, holding 70-pound dumbbells over your head with GHD sit-ups in a semifinals workout. Goddamn accessory session. These motherfuckers are doing it for time.
Very true. All right. We're going to jump into the skill work. Just like off-season 1, we are going to ask you to choose 1 to 3 of these and follow the progression for 9 weeks from start to finish. So say the movements first. We have muscle ups, handstand walk, bar muscle up, toe to bar, and then variations of handstand push up. Based on where you're at in the sport, how much time you have to train, and what your weaknesses are, you're going to choose 1 to 3 of those things and follow them for the entire phase. every single time that they pop up. For the muscle ups, we're going to do Misfit sets, 4 smooth sets, followed by 1 max set. If your max set is twice as big as your smooth set or more, you add reps the following week. Handstand walk progression is very straightforward. They're going to be little AMRAPs where we're going to increase how far you're walking unbroken in each AMRAP. So let's say it was AMRAP 1 minute times 3, 20-foot handstand walk. You're going to walk 20 feet, kick down, kick back up, walk 20 feet. You're going to do as many times as you can. And then you're going to do 25 feet and then 30 feet and so on. This allows us to ask for the same session for 2 very different athletes. Like, can an athlete walk back and forth for a minute straight? Like, that's pretty challenging to do. Can an athlete get 1 in a minute? Can an athlete get 2 in a minute? Can an athlete get 3 in a minute? Like, that's how we can, you can sort of personalize that for yourself. Bar muscle up volume sets, 6 even sets. We're just going to ride that through. Once again, give yourself runway. I could probably do 6. Okay. Then you should probably start at like 3 or 4 and try to get to the point at the end of the phase where you can do 7, 8, or 9. That would be pretty cool, but it requires you to have some humility at the beginning. Toe to bar Misfit sets. Once again, 4 smooth sets, 1 max set to finish. And then we are following the exact same progression of the strict handstand push-up, deficit handstand push-up, kipping handstand push-up through the course of the phase, where you're basically just trying to continue to make it a little bit further within those progressions. Choose 1 to 3, stick with it, give yourself runway. You will be better at the movements.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to that. You'll see the instructions weekly as well. Like, this is, exactly what you're saying. The 4 smooth sets, 1 max set. This progression will rotate for the next 9 weeks, whatever. Just pay attention to the instructions.
All right. We affectionately refer to monostructural conditioning as bitch work at Misfit Athletics. For everyone, you will have a power output bias on the C2 bike. Real special. Real special. Fill those legs up with blood, and then the blood will never leave. You'll get compartment syndrome, and you'll have to go to the hospital, and they'll cut your legs open. Just kidding. It does feel that way, though. We had an athlete who yelled, "I have compartment syndrome," after a bike sprint once. So we just have to bring that up. Cody, please. And then you'll rotate on other machines. So, maybe half of the sessions that you do for power output will be on the C2 bike, and the other half will be on just a rotation of echo, ski row, all that good stuff. You're going to C2 bike zone 2 on your active rest days. Once again, we have that 45 to 90 minute window. We want you guys to go longer than you normally would, but we understand that doesn't fit into everyone's schedule. So there is a, sort of an explanation of this that you'll see that's in there, but these windows are 45 to 90 minutes long. And the more volume that you get in zone 2, the more effective it is, essentially. That's kind of how that works. There will be anaerobic work weekly. Once again, not going to change run and bike season. So you're going to do plenty of that. And then an even mix of other machines outside of that. So say 2/3 of it are run and bike. The other third is a rotation. Same thing goes for your aerobic work. So you're just, run, bike, row, run, bike, ski, run, bike, echo, that sort of thing. And we talked about the progressions at the beginning of this podcast, but again, just try to pay close attention to what you had for scores in OS1, because that will give you a lot of really good information on OS2. If you are new to the program, round 1 of every single one of these workouts, you should be 100% positive about the pace. And then I use the projected finish screen on the C2 monitors. And if I got 664 meters, I try to get at least 665 or 666, that sort of thing. And then when you get to the end, make sure you note your average pace. And that is how you begin to build your gears matrix. Do not don't consider it a test to figure out what that is. Like, give yourself, back off a little bit to start. You can push, you can drag your average down, that sort of thing. And then use the average the next time you do that same gear.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add on the bitch work is that the first two things we talked about are the power output C2 bike bias and then the zone 2 C2 bike. And you can think about that. You can replace C2 bike with any machine and understand that those are kind of the two ends of the spectrum as far as like I'm going as hard as humanly possible. And then, in the power stuff, and then I'm going probably as slow as I'm ever going to go on this machine in the zone 2 work. And then everything else we just talked about, or Drew just talked about after that, falls somewhere in the middle, right? And so understanding, kind of filling in the gaps between this is the hardest I can possibly go on this machine, this is the slowest that I will likely ever go, knowing what, your effort level in all the areas in between, using the gears matrix, for example, is how we would, actually record that and denote the data. But also the fact that, you're going to see the same thing weekly with just like minor progressions should allow, kind of suggest what sort of pace you need to be holding. So make sure you're referencing previous weeks so that you can actually make informed decisions about how hard you're going. That's how you make progression on the machines like that.
And I build the phase based on you being able to take the next step, not just in the progressions, but the gears. So like whenever I restart a program in bias, I start at third gear for aerobic and fourth gear for anaerobic. And then I go slower in one direction and faster in the other direction. So I go from fourth gear to fifth gear. I know that it's going to be between 1 and 3 seconds per 500 meter / 1,000 meter split on the bike. So that's what Hunter's talking about in terms of like use that information, not just, okay, it's fourth gear and now it's fourth gear again, I'm going to use it, but also fourth gear to fifth gear. I know that I'm going to be in that same ballpark and just aim for my average to be a little bit faster.
Yep. It's the same idea that you'd used on your 5x5 back squat example, right? It's like, here's the middle. I can go, to the right of this, I'm going to add 5 pounds. To the left of this, it's 5 pounds less. You do the exact same thing with like, okay, it's a 7-minute row. Well, I know my 7-minute row is about my 2K pace. I can go up here if it goes to 9, 10, 11, 12 minutes, and I can go faster if it's 3, 5, 6 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a meathead creating a program to try to make the fittest person on earth. It's what it is. like I know that sort of information helps people.
Your bitch work.
Facts. The conditioning bias editions, there will be a zone 2 run on Monday or day 1, depending on what your day 1 is. Same idea, 45 to 90 minute windows, depending on how much time you have. And then the other bitch work pieces that we do on the conditioning bias end are multi-gear aerobic and anaerobic workouts. And it's essentially forced negative splits is what it is. We start typically at the slower gear and we work towards the faster gear. And we're showing you, like, I want negative splits for a lot of my athletes within a single gear. But if they're not good at doing that, I give them multi-gear workouts first. So it's like, all right, we're going to do 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th within this workout, and the rest is going to increase and the window is going to go down. It's going to be very obvious how you should do that. So if you are doing a conditioning bias, there is an implication that maybe you're not either as fit as you need to be or as good at pacing as you need to be. And this is the way that I've learned in remote coaching to force negative splits, is to give different gears as you go. No different than 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in a squat, that sort of thing.
Correct.
We have some pretty deep notes here on the metcons and intervals. It says stimulus ! That is the only bullet point on metcons and intervals. The reason it says that is because this time of year, we are focusing a little bit more, should be pretty obvious based on this podcast. That's like, we've talked about strength ad nauseum, monostructural conditioning, skill work, accessory work. When you go to do sports specific stuff, we want it to be real straightforward. Like when we're in the programming meeting, if the format of it's a little weird, if we're like, this might be too many reps, this might take us outside of the time domain, we back it off a little bit. And if you think that that's a cop out, think again, and just do the workouts that are simpler, especially if we're mean enough to make them an AMRAP. That's when you get some real intensity. But we just don't want the workouts to, we're not going to drop you in the desert on the muscle endurance workouts like we would, at a different time in the year, that sort of thing. So they're short, they're medium, they're long. Some of them for time, some of them are AMRAPs, some of them are EMOMs, they're cardio gas, muscle endurance stimulus, and they just rotate through, and we make sure that they hit a stimulus for a broader group of people than a workout might in, like a competition prep or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there are very few instances where I would err an athlete on the side of going heavier or higher skill and slower. It's almost like the blanket recommendation for basically everyone is like, if you're on the fence about modifying a weight, modifying a skill, modifying a number of reps or whatever, err on the side of a version of a workout that forces you to move fast and complete the work as quickly as possible, or do more work in less time, right? It's not impressive to say, I did the workout as prescribed and we're nowhere near the intended stimulus. Your score is at the very bottom of the leaderboard by, 20% compared to the next person. Like that, it's irrelevant. Your body doesn't know that was quote RX. It just knows that that's the volume of work that it did. Here's the adaptation that you receive. If you do more work in less time, your body will elicit you will elicit a broader and better adaptation. Err on the side of faster.
True. So that is off-season block number 2 in a nutshell. We are essentially continuing down the path of, like, I really like to sell the idea that the athletes that make it further in the competition season do not have as much time as you to improve. And this is the only way that you're going to catch them, is to take advantage of that time. And I know that that's really challenging to wrap your mind around. Like, I got to basically train year round to get to the place that they're at, but they did that in order to get to where they're at. So you're basically just at a different point in your career, and being able to like dive into 2/3 of your training is segmented and 1/3 of it is sports specific. You can move the needle on things that you need to. And then when phase 1 hits and everyone's back on the same program, you're in a place that's very different from them. Like, they went out and expressed their fitness. They, did a bunch of deloading. They did these really, challenging peaking phases. A lot of them had to do 2 of them. That's how you catch up. Because if it's just 1-to-1, if you're training the exact same way as that athlete that's better than you, they're eliciting, a different adaptation because of how hard they can go. So use the time. Take the time to go in and do it now so that you can, make up ground on who you're trying to make up ground on, or the athlete that's in the same position as you that is not taking this time of year as seriously.
Yeah, I think if, what happens to you in March, April, May, this time of year is largely a result of what happened to you in May, June, July of last year. So just setting yourself up, if you're somebody who, gets through the open, whatever stage of competition you're at, and you're looking to your left and your right and you're saying, God, like, what am I missing? What am I doing wrong or whatever? It's like, you look at those athletes and say, what were they doing at this time last year? Did they, we talk about the runway for Texas method, like you're currently on the runway for the 2026 season. And how you choose to approach that will largely impact your results 8-12 months from now.
True. Can we do it?
Yeah, boy.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Off-season block 2 gets started Monday, May 26th. Keep your eye on social media, link in bios, all that good stuff to get signed up, either on Strivey or Fitter. If you made it this far, and you are looking for affiliate programming, you can head to teammisfit.com, click on sign up now, get a 2-week free trial. Free trial
It's
is
fucking me up, Kyle. God damn
fixed
it.
on SugarWOD, correct?
Yes, correct.
Hey,
14-day free trial.
14-day free trial on SugarWOD, but teammisfit.com, click on sign up now. You're going to have options for your programming partners there. We'll see you next week.
Later.